Good afternoon, everyone. Professor York here again. I'm going to talk about the next topic that we discussed last week, which deals with customer relations as well as tactics and also some metrics. That's that they need to be concepts that really are intertwined. So let's moving first with talking about customer relationships. And this is how we reach out. And this is where many folks think about is really the marketing or outreach activity. Because what we're trying to do are three things. We're trying to get customers. We're trying to keep them once we have them as customers. And then lastly, we want to grow them either individually in terms of a return business and more business, or stacking in terms of offerings that we have, or getting referrals. So in the get funnel, and you'll hear the term the funnel, this is all about customer acquisition, where we will spend money on on paid media, and then we look for earned or free media to be able to create awareness and then to help the customer on his or her journey in terms of a relationship with your product satisfying, or your service satisfying their needs. But a part of that journey is what we call interest and consideration here, or interest and decision, where the customer is evaluating, gathering information to determine what makes most sense in terms of his or her needs. And consideration and decision is where they may actually be trying out maybe a test drive of a car, or getting a sample of a product to make a final decision around a product where purchase is. So we will talk about some of the tactics that tie in here, but I wanted you to know that this is the first piece I look for when we have customer relations. The second piece I look for is keep. And that's once you have a customer, how do you hold that customer? And that's loyalty programs, as well as updates, as well as satisfaction surveys. And then we have also check-in calls, as well as, the little punch cards that you have, buy 9 and get your 10th sandwich free. And then you even have like little cards that you put on your keychain that record your use. Or if you're in the hotel or in the airline business, the membership miles. This is all designed to keep you engaged and keep you as a customer, and not to go to your competition. And then growing is really where we look at a variety of things, which could be unbundling the offer, or upselling or cross-selling products that help us monetize more of that relationship. A very good example I will use is like you go to Best Buy to buy a computer, and they sell to you a service plan with the Geek Squad. And you may, with your computer, need to get a backpack, or with your computer, you may need also to get some software. So this is a way that you can cross-sell, and ultimately referrals in terms of satisfied customer. And again, satisfaction in the initial engagement process, but satisfaction throughout leads to a viral loop, because customers will tell others about how good their relationship is with you. So let's talk about tactics, because these tactics inlay. And folks think about marketing from the tactile side. I like to start with the funnel, so we think about tactics from the standpoint of strategic. We're using tactics to do one of three things. One is to get, keep, or grow. And then even on the get side, using tactics to be able to influence a customer through the funnel from awareness ultimately to acquisition. So involving a direction inbound, which tends to be driven by a good content. Okay, we see that with social media, we see with good websites and blogs. Outbound is our traditional media, as we see TV, radio, and print. And then there's earned versus paid. And as I said, earned is going to be interviews and news pieces that are picked up, your tweeting, your blogs, whereas paid is where you're going to have where you pay for a push being as seen on TV or radio or in a particular periodical. Now, earned, as I talked beforehand, is free, and that's involving public relations, but it also can be in terms of articles or news stories where you're able to jump on something. You can maybe even what we call newsjack a news story with a good PR firm and really make the most of that. And that can be something that is free. Interviews, this is why you see executives many times giving trade interviews in, say, the tech press or some other type of press, the business press, to create awareness. That's why you would see Steve Jobs, who would do his Apple presentations that are there. That's where you saw Bill Gates would give many interviews, is to get the message out. And the CEO is a very good, really, spokesperson for the company. In fact, if you look at TV commercials, sometimes you do see the CEO. The communications to followers, vis-a-vis blog, as we see with Donald Trump here, using the Twitter, and then ultimately blogging, which is a very, very powerful tool that you can tie into your website, which can improve your SEO rankings. And then there's traditional media, as we've talked about beforehand: TV, print ads, radio, billboards, direct mail, and flyers, which you're going to pay for, but create impressions. So you create awareness and help reinforce your brand image. Or they may be there to get a particular offer out to drive customers through that funnel. And then there is the subtle form of what we call product placement, where we see, and companies will pay in movies and TV to have their products strategically placed. And it can help underwrite really the production of particular media production by having the advertisers subtly have placed their Coca-Cola cups, or we see here a Coca-Cola a dispensing machine. So this is something that subtly makes the influence by affiliation, that you're watching the show and it's in this show and it's with these celebrities. So it must be something that's accepted as mainstream and helps to enhance the brand profile. And then there's trade shows. And trade shows are associated with national organizations that may be trade organizations or professional meetings where a number of folks within a specific area, it could be computer science, it could be in pharmaceuticals, it could be in surgery, it could be in nursing discipline, it could be some of the high-tech stuff going on. There are a number of these trade shows that go on with a major meeting, and these trade shows literally can take up 2 to 3 major large halls in the convention center. And at these trade shows, a lot of business gets done. In fact, at the American Academy of Ophthalmology, which is usually in late October, early November, this is where many surgical manufacturers end up taking a lot of orders from ophthalmologists. But then there is the sales force and the materials to help them stay on message and help them with the sales process. The sales force is probably one of the most important vehicles that is there in terms of not only the helping guide the customer through the funnel, but to close the business and to help keep those customers as well. And so they are your ombudsman in dealing with those customers and getting those customers. We like to think of hunters as ones that get the business, and then there's the farmers that basically are able to work the business and keep the business going. That's there. And then having materials to be able to make sure there's consistency of message and that there's support information to help the customer with their decision journey as they move through the process to acquisition. And then there's digital tools that you all may be familiar with. We know about social media. I'll talk about it a little further in a few minutes, but your website being a very critical point where a lot of activity can go, especially if you're active in terms of changing up and making sure that it has good content and it has strategic content that is optimized. And we call this search engine optimization, so that you can end up on page 1 of a search engine report. Okay, and this is where AdWords comes into play. And then there's other things where you can have, like with HubSpot, you can have automated marketing You could have email outbound with programs like MailChimp or Constant Contact. And then last but not least, as we talked about beforehand, blogs, which can really help get your brand out, and you can tie in with your website. That can allow you to enhance your SEO ranking. And then there's social media that we tie in here to digital, which is, as we know, with the big three, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn more for the, I would say, professional audiences, where Facebook and Twitter hit a broader business of audiences. But there's others that have become quite relevant, such as Pinterest, which create interest boards, which can be tied and pulled from your website. So you hyperlink to your website. There's YouTube videos, which are probably some of the most valuable and interest and engaging type of tools that are out there for the audience. And then there's Instagram, which is very popular for the millennials. And then for those who do business in Asia, WeChat is a very, very key tool for social media. And then, you have these tactics. Well, remember, what gets measured gets managed. And that's just so critical, okay? And what gets managed gets done. And that's the quote Peter Drucker from the Drucker School of Management, one of the key thought leaders in business. So we have to go back through the customer journey. In the customer journey, we have to start in terms of, as us looking for something, we have to recognize that need. It can be a stimulus of, for instance, if we are out at a farmer's market, seeing some food, smelling some smells from food may cause an external stimuli to an internal stimuli, which might be hunger. And then for you to start investigating, whether it's talking to different vendors about who's serving food, or it could be getting on your phone to evaluate various alternatives, and then make a decision based on maybe it's one of the vendors has provided some samples, okay, which is very common in farmers market, and ultimately in terms of making that purchase decision, in terms of buying lunch, and then also the post-purchase behavior, which is a good Yelp rating or a referral of the particular place that you ate to a friend, or if you had a bad lunch, to make a Yelp rating or a TripAdvisor rating to say that this was not a great experience. Also is we see people posting pictures of themselves up on Facebook for their experience in a place, or a place, if they had a great experience, will ask for that as well. And that's actually funny, as my first business, which was a restaurant, we used to do that a lot with our customers. And these tactics tie back to the funnel. And so as you're having various tactics, you'll hear a concept called funnel metrics, and we're measuring things, and we're really utilizing and placing various tactics through this customer journey, okay? And what we want to know is that whether the tactics are effective in helping move that customer from being aware ultimately to being a customer, and then also staying on as a customer, or even being an enthusiast, which would go and advocate the business. Okay, so these are different pieces that you'll see in terms of tactics that tie in to the funnel, because they have specific roles relative to the sales process of acquisition, as well as to keep and then to grow the customer. So when we look at the funnel, you have to think about a few things. The first one is we spend a lot of money on sales and marketing activities, okay? And there's a very key metric that investors look for, and that's the cost to acquire a customer or activate a customer. And that's the total pay cost to drive these customers into the funnel and to convert them to a purchaser. So if you have, say, spent $5,000 in terms of marketing, and that's driven now 100 customers in, and ultimately you get 10 customers who acquire a product, then that your cost to activate a customer is $500. Okay? Related to that is funnel efficiency, which is the rate at which one can convert more customers from the funnel entry to ultimately acquisition. Okay? And sometimes we'll use the term purchase driver scorecard, which really scores and looks at efficiency of conversion from step to step to step to ultimate acquisition. So what we were ideally looking for is if we had 100 customers and they ended up with 10 acquisitions, you would like to see, can you be more efficient? So if you have looked through your funnel and you find places where the funnel is getting stuck, maybe it's in the interest or consideration piece, and you look at how can we be able to get through that so that in essence we can now make the funnel more efficient, and instead of 10 customers that activate, we have 20 customers, so now our funnel efficiency is moved from 10% to 20%. Okay, and when we do that, it's cost efficient in driving prospects. So what happens is that this cost to activate a customer goes down. Okay, and that's what we want, is when efficiency goes up, CTAC goes down. And then there's what we call the lifetime value. So it's not just about that first purchase, but it is over time. And as you remember in brief 4, we talked about both the CTAC, and we also talked about the lifetime value. And that is, if we have a customer, how long will they stay? How much will they buy over a lifetime? It may be 3 or 4 years. They may make multiple purchases, or they may be on a subscription. So we just use the subscription model. Say that you pay $100 a month in a subscription, and you're there for 3 years. That means that customer is worth $3,600. You then have to factor in as well customers that do bounce, and we use the term churn as well. But what we know is for that individual customer, the lifetime value is $3,600. Now, there is a concept called churn, which is we have this customer, but the customer does not return. So that's a very important thing. So if you have those 10 customers and 5 you stay with and have a really nice life with them in terms of keeping them, then your churn rate is 50%. So that's another metric that's very critical as well. A few other digital metrics I'm just going to offer to you so that you be aware of these because they are very important, is impressions, which we not only see in terms of digital but also in print and in they tend to be very broad-based type of reach, and reach is related to that, because what we're looking at is like the Nielsen rating in terms of individual users or social accounts reached by the content. So these two are used in print and in TV and in radio. Okay, but they are also used relative to digital. It's just that they are not as meaningful because, you know, if you just hit a page and leave and you bounce back, that's going to be seen as an impression. Or if you just come up on a SERP search result and you end up being on page 1, then Google will say that you had an impression. And if you have had a contract for payment for impressions, then you would be paying a lot of money and not necessarily getting the return on investment you're looking for. When you're digital, you're looking for engagement. So you're looking for actions such as clicks, likes, comments. And so what you have are other metrics that relate to. So you have cost per impression, which ties to this impressions and reach, but then you have this cost per acquisition or sign up, which ties into this engagement. So you need to understand the difference, and usually it's per 1,000. And then also is the sentiment, which we know very well as the likes that we see on Facebook, but also if you're using Quora or star ratings, such as in TripAdvisor or in Yelp, that the sentiment can make a big difference in terms of whether you have other customers that are going to enter into the funnel and engage with you, or they will go and search and find that you have a positive Yelp rating when they're looking at consideration of various alternatives, and they say, okay, I'm going to give you a try, so I'm going to go to your restaurant because of those recommended, or stay at your hotel. And then a few other is unique visitors. So if you have a lot of traffic coming into your website, what you're learning to look at is how many are unique visitors, not say you have 100 visitors who have come today and they come back in the next week. We're looking at, you know, if you have another 100 that next 100 over the week is considered unique visitors versus repeat visitors. And then you have click-throughs, which are representative of action. And usually it's on a specific call to action. So when you have, for instance, if you're doing an MVP test and you have a CTA or a call to action button, that's what you're looking through, is the click-through or the sign-up that you're looking at. And tied to that can be a click rate, which is the click on your content divided by the impressions times 100, of which 20% is considered good, okay? And this ties in the impressions piece to where we have click-through rates, which are clicks that brands click to your content, okay? So that's going into the SERP and then click down into your brand time 100, where 10% is a highly desirable. And then last but not least is link tagging, where you have Google Analytics, or you'll have a pixel from Facebook where you're able to tag in and see where your sources are, and in essence where other people are now tagging your links and using your content. That's why having good content is very important, so that people will pick up and share your content, so that it's growing organically. And when you have a lot of what we call link tagging, as well as unique content, so your SEO is driven by those things, and then key AdWords or keywords, in terms of really having owned that keyword space, what happens is that will drive up your search engine scores, and that'll get you up on page 1 in a Google search. Or if you have to buy AdWords, you're paying less for that. So anyway, that gives you sort of a top line relative to customer relations, as well as some tactics and metrics. The metrics piece, I will emphasize, will tie in not just in terms of customer relations, but go into the key activities when we look at sales and marketing. And remember that when you look at key activities, that each of those activities, a good manager and a good entrepreneur needs to be able to measure those key activities, whether it's sales, marketing, whether it be production, manufacturing, and even down to your R&D activities. Anyway, I hope that this update was helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.